is Brendan, and today we'll like to present to you about ball bearings.
And hello, my name is Muhammad. At the end of this session, we will be able to understand the function of bearing, types of bearing, basis of selection, and we will also look into the reason why the bearing fails.
Everyday items like bicycle, cars, and even these watches all use bearings. But what are bearings? The definition of bearing: the bearing is a machine element that constrains relative motion between moving parts to only a desired motion. Okay, what are the functions of bearings? Here, an example is an induction motor, where the bearing is used to support the rotor inside the motor. The bearing location is located at the drive end and at the back, which is called the non-drive end. The bearing prevents lateral movement of the rotor inside the motor by radial or axial motion. It also reduces friction between the moving parts and the static parts. Bearing also provide a replaceable wear surface for the bearing, which means the bearing can be replaced if it's damaged.
There are two basic types of bearings. One is plain bearings, and the other is rolling bearing. The example of the plain bearing such as journal bearing, solid bearing, and bush bearing. For the rolling bearing, the example such as ball bearing and roller bearing. The plain bearing use the sliding friction, while the rolling bearing use a rolling friction. The rolling friction is smaller than the sliding friction because of the small contact area. This is why the rolling bearing also called as anti-friction bearing.
There are several types of rolling element used inside a bearing, such as cylindrical, spherical, tapered, or needle. These four types of rolling element is used in bearing. So suitable selection can be made depending on the criteria of the operating of the machine. So here is a general rule of thumb of choosing a roller bearing element. This orange region here shows a ball bearing. Ball bearing is widely used in the industry because of its high speed capabilities and a high load bearing capacity. In industry, ball bearing is chosen because of these qualities. Compared to roller bearing, even though they can withstand higher load up to 10,000 pounds, but the speed limit is just limited to around 3,000 RPM and below.
Here we have an example of rolling bearings. This tree is the single row deep groove ball bearing, and here one is a cylindrical roller bearing. From this single row deep groove ball bearing, the outside here is called outer race, and the inside diameter is called inner race, and the cover here called cage. From this broken bearing, we can see the inside the rolling element of the bearing, which is the spherical element, the ball bearing. Here,
this bearing here has broken the cage here and is now not functioning properly. It is hard to operate, and the balls are not aligned because the retainer that put the ball in place has broken.
here we can see a ball bearing in a good condition. It runs smoothly. Compared to here, a ball bearing in the bad condition. It cannot rotate properly.
This is an example of a rolling bearing. It has a rolling element of cylindrical rolling element, and if you can see between this rolling element there is a grease. Yeah, and this grease helps in reducing friction when the bearing is in use. So what are grease? The grease is a lubrication for the bearings. It is to lubricate moving parts, usually where metal to metal contact is available. It is made to be thick so it will stay in place and not leak out from the bearing seal. So there's two main ingredients in grease. First, the lubrication oil, and they added thickener, which give the grease its consistency, and it will hold in place when it is in use.
Now, we like to see why bearing fails. Even when the bearings are being used under ideal condition, failure of bearing are caused by deterioration of material due to rolling fatigue. Generally, the service life of bearing is expressed either as a period of time or as a total number of rotational before the occurrence of failure in the inner ring, outer ring, or the rolling element because of the rolling fatigue due to the repeated stress. The following causes should be considered: inappropriate use of bearing, faulty installation and or improper processing, improper lubrication method or sealing device, inappropriate speed and operating temperature, contamination by foreign matters during installation, or abnormally heavy loads.
In conclusion, ball bearings are a precision machine within themselves and may require maintenance in accordance with the manufacturer's recommendation. They must be given proper care to promote reasonable life, and lack of knowledge and failure to follow the manufacturer's recommendation may result in either premature, slow failure, and symptomatic noise and vibration. And finally, thank you for joining us in the brief introduction of bearings, and I hope you guys learn some more or less what bearing is. Thank you.